Good thing you're not in this sucker.
We're on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yogi's, of course, for After the Game with Todd Leary, live from Yogi's, of course. Todd Leary, the star of the show. It's difficult for us to do this one tonight, not for the loss, but we know that the show about the 85 Indiana team is on. It's actually on while we're doing this, so it's kind of hard not to be distracted by that because that's probably the best thing we're going to see tonight, Todd.
Well, we know what a positive effect that trip had on the team, and maybe this current team could just head on over now and go overseas and come back next season. Because right now, I mean, who wants to watch the rest of this season? Not me.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, it's there's I don't even know where really to start because it's the same old stuff, and you say it every time. And tonight, there's no changing. There's no change coming, and I don't know why anybody would expect that. I'm surprised why anyone was surprised here, but I've said it, and I don't know where you go from here. And it's kind of hard to not talk about the elephant in the room, but let's go ahead and try to move past that. Again, this game, there was the guard play. Man, Al Durham was the only guy scoring. There were three guards. Did they ever hit a shot? The other three guards?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, between so here's the difficulty. So, what do we do? Do we talk about this particular game? Do we talk about the gigantic problem Indiana has? Do we talk about what positive do we have to look forward to? I honestly don't know. I mean, it's silly to just talk about this game specifically because did you expect to win? No, I didn't. Going into Rutgers, I didn't expect to win.
I don't think they're going to win another game.
If they do, it'll probably be a surprising fluke, and that's the very unfortunate part of this. And I mean, I don't know. I try to stay positive. It's just very difficult. It's very difficult to watch this team play. They are, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I think they're all really good kids. I really like Archie Miller. I really like the assistant coaches. I think they're all great people. But this is not working. They're not meshing. They're not gelling together. It's just not. It's not working. I don't know how else you describe that.
Yeah, it being nice and all that is great, but at the end of the day, they're paid to do a job, and they are not getting it done, and it is not working. And we're not talking about minimum wage here. We're talking about millions of dollars, and Indiana's going to have to make a serious decision. I know that there is a money issue of Archie's contract is for 3 more years. Right now, if you part ways with him before a year from now, it's going to cost you about $10 million unless you can come to an agreement of some sort. But something's got to happen. This team has not changed one bit in 4 years, and for somebody to think that's going to happen next year, they're either crazy or I'll just say they're stupid. Or I shouldn't say that word. They're just dumb because it's not going to happen. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen to this team.
Yeah, I am truly afraid of what's going to happen to this team as well. I mean, if let's say, based on the mock drafts, let's just take the experts' opinions, and based on the mock drafts, Trace Jackson-Davis is not going to go to the NBA this year. It would make no sense for him to go this year. So let's say he comes back to college. Could anyone possibly that's not just a gigantic Indiana fan sit down with him and honestly look him in the eye and tell him it makes sense for him to come back to Indiana because he has a really good chance of making the NCAA tournament? No, you can't. And so, I mean, unless there's a change, unless there's a reason for, and when I say change, I mean a change in the overall philosophy. I mean a change in everything they do. That change can be with Archie Miller. It can be without Archie Miller. I'm saying something has to change. They can't continue to walk in the gym and do the same things day after day after day. It's just impossible. I mean, I've already said it so many times today. I'll forget to say it to start the game out. Yeah, we're everybody's get right game again. We were the get right game for Rutgers back when they played here, and they're 6-3 since that point. Within that, with the microcosm within that, we're Ron Harper Jr.'s get right team. I mean, you just knew for a fact. 1 for 20, like you saw all the stats. 1 for the last 27, 4 for his last 44. You knew for a fact he was going to make some big shots tonight. And as an Indiana player, you read those stats. You know those same things. The coaches give you all the scouting reports. You know that stuff going into it. You have to say, he might get right, but it's not going to be tonight. and we're not going to let him go off and go crazy. And for some reason, that doesn't happen. Nobody steps up in that regard and says it's not going to happen against us.
Yeah, and these guys they're too good of players. We all saw them play in high school. I'm not saying that they were all top of the line All-Americans, but they're all good players. And the non-development and sometimes regression is almost shocking to see. And as a team, it's really crushing because there is no cohesiveness whatsoever.
And that to me is the key, because you can take a bunch of really good players and put them all together and they might not play well together. Okay. Or you can take a bunch of guys who are middle of the road, average, decent, above average, pretty good players, and those guys can play well together. I'll use, let's take, for example, Wisconsin. Okay. Wisconsin, man for man. You line them up, man for man. Trace Jackson Davis versus Rutgers, and you go man for man. Other than Trice, Indiana is probably better and more athletic and more physically talented at every single position except for the point guard. But they play well together. They know how to play. They understand where each other's going to be. They know how to play defense. They know how to force each other to the help. Like, they understand how to play together. And they're a perfect example, because talent-wise, Wisconsin is not very good. I don't care what anybody says. They're not very good. But they're kind of like an old Indiana team where they all understand what everybody else can and can't do, and they play well together. And this team, that's my biggest issue with everything. That's why I'm so scared, Jim, of the future. And the future meaning like the rest of this season and next year and where we go, because I don't see the upward trend. I don't know what positive I could talk about.
Well, no one sees an upward trend because there is no trend. I've begged people on the show, you give me something to positive to talk about. I'd love to. And I've had no one give me anything because there is nothing. But this goes back to Indiana, and they have to make a decision. If you allow this to continue next year, and I'm saying it right now, you're saying you think of Indiana basketball now as what Indiana football used to be. Because there is no doubt, in my opinion, if you made a change at the end of the season, that's not a rebuilding job. There's talent here. There's talent around here that you could quick, and transfers, you could kind of quickly rebuild, I think, and get back. If you let it go another year, it absolutely becomes a rebuild. People are going to be gone. It's going to be bad if they let it go another year, and they just can't do that. They're going to have to find a way to do something.
Well, I mean, here's what we're never going to be privy to. Is there'll be a sit-down meeting. It may be tomorrow morning. It may be after the season's over. But there'll be a sit-down meeting with Archie Miller and Scott Dolson. And they will sit down and Archie Miller will lay out his plan as to what they're going to do to turn it around. Turn it around is the only way you can look at it, because it's not it's not going in a positive direction. So if these guys all get, hey, come on now.
Drunk ass people in here now.
These people right here don't even understand. I'm in a bad mood already. I will smash somebody's face in here in a second. They're picking with the wrong person right now, because I don't like to lose, and I'm tired of losing, and
yes,
it'll get ugly. It'll get ugly in a hurry. This is why I stay home most of the time. But this is that meeting. That meeting is going to be the difference between whether Archie continues here or not, because I do think he could develop a plan. He could sit down and get them to understand that it can happen, because that's how he got the job in the first place.
But I think that someone listened to a line. This has been 4 years. If you could do it,
I'm with you.
You would have done it. If you could, you would. He can't. He cannot do it. He can't. Where's the recruiting coming from? It's not working. He's not getting the players. Purdue, you all better get ready to just look at Purdue's behind for the next 3 to 4 years, and it's not pretty right now. It's going to get uglier. Indiana has to make a change after this year. There's no question. They cannot go another year with Archie Miller. He cannot coach at this level right now. Maybe he will become a better coach later. What he's doing and and his inability or unwavering refusal to change, that's not a mark of a good coach. I don't care who it is. They're able to make changes on the fly and adjust to whether it's personnel or whatever the case, or someone else's personnel. There is just no change, and it's a flat-out refusal. And to me, that's arrogant. When you can have 4 years of something that is absolutely proven to not work here, but to be arrogant enough to still say, I'm going to do it anyway. That's a big set of brass ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just look at it from the standpoint of you've got to have production. You've got to have development, player development. You've got to have the team get together. Like we all say this every year. So I'm not like stating something that all of a sudden I figured out. Everybody that's a basketball fan figures this out every year. Tom Izzo's teams generally start out fairly slow, and at the end of the year, they are a much better team. Okay, and this year's team is probably the biggest example of that, because they were awful to start the season out, and now they're better. Who knows whether they'll continue that or not? But they're better, and they continually get better year in and year out. And my problem with this right now is I don't see this team better. I don't think they're better now than they were when they started the season. I don't think they're better now than they were. I don't think Trace Jackson Davis is a better player today than he was the day he stepped on campus. And that's what I have a problem with. That's where I don't see the positivity, which as a former player, am I any bigger expert than the fan that watches every game? Probably not. Especially when it comes to this team, because I can't figure out what's going on. I can't figure out what they're doing. The only thing I can say is it's not working, and there's no cohesiveness, to use that term. They don't play well together. There's just no other way to say it. Like, they don't play well together, and that to me is a sign of you got to start at the top. And the person responsible for them playing well together is the coaching staff, not just Archie, but all of them. And you watch other teams turn it around in a year. You watch Juwan Howard turn Michigan around. Not turn them around. They weren't in terrible shape, but make them a much better team. Take a bunch of guys who, are fairly new to the program and make them all play well together. And that comes from the coach. And it doesn't take 10 years to build a program.
No, he was able to come in and cohesively web what he wanted to do with what was there, adjust into it, and then get to where he wants to be.
Here's something, Jim. It's silly because I want to throw something to the TV every time I hear it. But just watch the next Michigan game that Stephen Bardo does. And I love Stephen Bardo. I think he's a fantastic announcer. But you watch the next game that Michigan plays that Stephen Bardo does, and he will talk repeatedly about how in the huddle the players never take their eyes off of Juwan Howard. Like, they listen to everything that he says, and they are so locked in. And that's the key term that I take away from all of that. They everything that comes out of his mouth is the gospel. Everything Coach Knight said to us was the gospel. Okay, like whatever he said, we were doing no matter what. If he said, hey, run through that wall, I told you before, I've told the story a million times. He told me one time, hand the ball to the other guy. I want you to hand it to him right now. And I handed it to him. I did what he told me, because that's how much you believe in it. And that's how those guys at Michigan believe in Juwan Howard. And for whatever the reason is, I don't see that same intensity and buy-in and locked in from Indiana with the coaching staff. I'm not saying they don't believe in Archie and all that. I'm saying whatever he's saying and whatever it is they're getting out of it, it's not going together. It's not gelling together.
Well, Wesley hit on a big reason why. Everything Archie does is scripted, and he does not waver from that. The only reason you saw a different halftime lineup is because Armand Franklin tweaked his ankle.
Right.
And that's the only reason you saw Trey Galloway in there, because I was like, what the hell? It just refuses, and I don't know how you
coaches have different philosophies, and I will just say, obviously, that's Archie's philosophy. He's not changing the lineup, and I don't have an answer because I don't understand it. I don't get it, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, I don't understand how he can think that he can win when in 4 years he hasn't been able to win.
Jim, every single week, it seems like, I shouldn't say that because that's not true, but it seems like every week we see a quote from him after a game that says, we've got to get such and such more involved more. Okay?
Yes.
And that never happens. It never happens.
Like getting Trace Jackson-Davis, Race Thompson, and getting
Jerome Hunter
on the floor at the same time.
This week it was Jordan Geronimo. Jordan Geronimo was the guy that was going to, or last week it was Geronimo. This week it's Hunter. Like, it seems like all the time there's a new guy that we're going to have to get more involved, but he never gets more involved. Never. It never happens. They don't ever change the lineup.
They don't change anything. And that's an issue because and I know you said that when you execute, they don't execute. They don't execute because we've talked about everyone knows what's coming with Indiana. Well, that's not the problem. I watch them set screen. They don't even touch the defender when they don't really screen. I don't know what that is when you don't even really screen the guy you're screening, but they just kind of go through the motions and nothing is crisp. The passes aren't crisp. The routes aren't crisp. And that makes a difference.
So I'll nitpick the offense here for a second because it's something I don't get. And so watch how many times you'll see an Indiana player, whether it's Al Durham or Armand Franklin or Leal or Galloway or whomever it is, not the point guard generally, but whoever the off guards are. As soon as they get rid of the ball, they literally walk to the corner. Walk. Like, there's no – I can't name an Indiana player between 1971 and the year 2000 that ever walked on the floor from point A to point B. And Indiana players do it every single possession. And all I'll say is from 1971 to year 2000, Indiana was pretty successful. And for what I've seen for the last 4 years, it's not very successful.
And there's no reason to think that next year's going to be different, but because there's no change, which is scary. This league is not – it probably won't be as strong next year as it is this year, but Indiana has been left behind. Rutgers, Penn State.
Look, hey, hold on a minute. Here. I don't want to get better because everybody else gets worse. I don't want to move up in the standings because everybody else has people graduate and they get worse. I want to beat the good teams. I want to say, hey, we play in the Big Ten, and we're the best team in the Big Ten. Like, that's what I want to say. That's who I want to be. Like, I want to be the Michigans. Like, I don't want to be. I mean, Ohio State is the most parallel example. Coach came in the exact same time. Players are relatively, they're ranked lower than Indiana's players are. They're the most parallel example, and they're second in the Big Ten.
Yep.
So it's possible. I don't need the Big Ten to get worse.
Oh, no, it's all about coaching. There's no doubt about that. I left this one up only because you talked about this game so much, and it's a great point. He's like, all right, screw you guys. Get your ass beat. I'm going to show you. And then, but it does.
You know what? Here's the thing. Like in that game, so there are a lot of games where, Coach Knight would kind of catch you off guard and how he would respond to certain situations. And I can tell you, we watched more game film than anyone in the country, without any question, without a doubt. No other team in the world watched as much game film as we did. And we never watched that 50-point blowout to Minnesota. We never watched 1 second of it. Not 1 second. He could have cared less about that after it was over. It was a figure out what you do to get better and make sure that never happens again. And I'm kind of at a loss for how to respond to this, Jim, because I want to do these shows. I want to continue to do them. Like I have loved doing it for the years that we've done this. But Jim, I don't know what to say every day because all I do is just say a bunch of bitching, moaning about how upset I am all the time.
You're at a loss because it seems I'm not saying Indiana doesn't care, but there's no doubt it's time for a change. This has not worked. Someone made a reference earlier. I thought it was a great point. It said it's time to realize you hired Billy Gillispie. Kentucky thought they had a great hire when they hired Billy Gillispie. He had a great run at Texas A&M. He beat Kentucky. But all it was, he had a great player, and that was it. He turned out to be a bust. They got rid of his ass and moved on quickly. That's because that's what a blue blood does. They do blue blood things. If you want to stay an elite program, you've got to do elite things. And riding this out is not it, because there's not a shred of evidence that shows there's anything even suggesting a positive trend in any way. Nothing. So after 4 years of that, not 2 years, 4 years of that, that's enough for somebody to graduate college. I've seen all I need to see, and I think the majority of fans have too.
Well, and you know what? Like I think I'll stand behind this comment. I think a lot of big time people would sincerely disagree with what I'm getting ready to say, and I understand that. But if you took Kentucky right now and you said, okay, let's fast forward 4 years, and let's say they don't make the NCAA tournament for 4 consecutive years, and they have the same record as Indiana does, I think Kentucky would fire John Calipari. I think Duke would fire Mike Krzyzewski. I think Michigan State would fire Tom Izzo. And if it wouldn't be termed fire, but I think they would come to
retired.
An agreement. They would come to an agreement where it was time to go. You know, I mean, I don't think Judd Heathcote. I mean, I don't think anyone was ready to really fire him. They figured out a way. That they found a guy to bring in there that was Tom Izzo, and he became Tom Izzo.
Louisville and Denny Crum.
I don't think that any true blue blood program would put up. Roy Williams in North Carolina would be fired after 4 consecutive years of not making the NCAA tournament. And I know last year COVID cost us making the NCAA tournament. I understand that. I believe that's factual. But deal with facts. If we weren't in there. There wasn't one. We didn't have it. We haven't been in the NCAA tournament since 2015 or whatever it was. And that's unacceptable. Like that, you can't continue on at that pace. Here's what I go back and think to myself. I think Archie Miller would have agreed if Fred Glass had said back in with the year he was hired, if we don't make the NCAA tournament in the first 4 years that you're here, you walk away and we don't pay you a cent. And I think he would have said that I'll sign that contract all day long, because I don't think that's even. I'll walk away if I can't make the NCAA tournament at Indiana. And here we are.
It should be a requirement in the contract. All these contracts are built to, hey, do this. There's nothing to put in there to incentivize you to not lose. There should be something in there to incentivize you to not lose, to really win. And it works to everybody's others' benefits, but besides the school, which kind of leaves them handcuffed right now, which I know that happens a lot, but that's usually later on down the road in contracts.
Do you think you would ever hear University of Kentucky?
No.
Do you think you would ever hear them say, because of money reasons, we can't make a certain decision?
No. Especially this amount.
Duke, Ohio State, you never hear that. Never in a million. North Carolina, you would never hear that. So if Indiana wants to put themselves in that conversation, then you got to. Yeah, you want to be treated a certain way. You want people to respect you a certain way. You got to act that way.
Hey, I got to do a quick reset before I forget. Hey, we're coming to you live. You're listening to After the Game with Todd Leary, of course. We're coming to you live from Yogi's. Make sure if you're out and about, stop by.
I'm so negative today. Yogis might not want to claim us today.
Have some mini corn dogs. They still got those in chicken velvet soup or whatever else
highlight of the day. Mini corn
dogs.
Dog.
Always the highlight of the day. I couldn't get that on. There we go. I'll leave that up there for a minute.
I used to eat a mini corn dog for every 3-pointer that we made, but now I eat a mini corn dog for every point we lose by. So I'm full.
I put this up. Jonathan says his Ken Palm has gotten better each year. This cracks me up. If you see or the Facebook people and all this stuff, all these stupid ass stats, that's because they're not talking about the game, the sport. They're talking about numbers that are skewed, that can be skewed. I don't care if his Ken Palm numbers have gotten better. His finish in the Big Ten has plummeted time after time. His win-loss record, down. The product on the floor, down. I don't care what Ken Palm says. That's a computer. If you go by that stuff, you're not watching the game.
And here's the deal with that. You can't choose to either follow some of the stats and not other ones, or you just got to choose to not follow any of them and understand they're all just numbers at some point. And if Ken Palm rated them the number 1 team in the country right now, they still wouldn't make the NCAA tournament. So I do think there's a lot of validity to the Ken Palm numbers, and I think that there's obviously some loopholes in it, and there's obviously some issues with it, because there's no way you can take this team right now and say that they're a top 64 team in the country or whatever number you want to put them at. I don't care how difficult the schedule is. No one come back to me and tell me we play in the Big Ten, it's a difficult schedule. I want to play a difficult schedule. Like I don't want to go play in the MAC so that we can win. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, and it's never going to, because Indiana's an elite program and they're in an elite league with other elite programs. But these other programs that have come in later, Rutgers, Penn State, they've been actively working for years, grinding. Man, they're catching up. Indiana's fallen behind. I said that earlier, but a lot of people mentioned the administration. There's been problems there. There's been a ton of problems. There's not one issue that has led to where Indiana basketball is right now. It's not just Archie Miller. It's not this or that. It's a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of problems that have not been resolved. But
look, what's the coach? What's the coach at Wisconsin's name?
Greg Gard.
Greg Gard. How many other schools were going after Greg Gard as a head
None, to
coach?
my knowledge. He was an assistant at Wisconsin.
It's exactly right. And you know why he's been successful there? Because
he's doing what was doing before.
They have a culture. Okay, there's no rest of that sentence. They have a culture. And all he has done is manifest that, take it and build on it and grow with it and continue it. Okay? And Indiana has no culture. You know what Indiana's culture is? And I'm going to say this, and I'm allowed to say it because other people from other schools make fun of me about it all the time. You know what Indiana's culture is? The weight room pictures. Like we got a shit ton of weight room pictures where guys look so much better after they've worked out with Cliff Marshall. And Cliff Marshall's amazing. He does an incredible job. All of us fat old men should go see him all the time. Okay? And he does his part. He does what he's supposed to do with those guys. But that's the culture that Indiana, that's the reputation and culture Indiana has to the outside world, is we got a bunch of guys who have great abs, but can't score a bucket to save their life. And again, look at what I'm talking about. Look at where we're at. Look at where we're at in these shows. I have to talk about stupid stuff like that because if I talk about the game, I get mad and I just turn into negative Nancy.
Well, there's nothing left to talk. I'll tell you what. How about a big 77-49 for the number 11 ranked Indiana women's team tonight? So they're second in the Big Ten, so congratulations to them. But it's when your bell cow program is just basically sucking ass, and it's
Jordan, you may need to. This guy bumps me one more time, and you may need to bail me out for sure.
Well, he's over drunk, passed out. About half. Looks like, but get on down here.
Be choked out in a minute.
a little UFC going on. We might as well go ahead and wrap up then. Next up, a Saturday game with Michigan.
We might get a lot more views if we keep this going for a minute and I just take this dude out.
Oh, man, it could get bad. I'll try to get somebody over there before I can get it.
Deep breaths.
Got Michigan coming up, man. They came out of COVID and they look amazing.
Let's make a deal. Hey, let's make a deal. Us and all of our people that watch the show and all our fan base, let's make a deal. Let's not get mad on Saturday afternoon because none of us expect to win that game anyway.
No.
So we shouldn't be all pissed off after the game's over. I'm going to do my best. I suck at it, but I don't.
But here's a great thing. All right, so knowing that, and I know you can't go into a game not thinking you have a chance to win. As a competitor, you can't do that. Archie, but in the back of his mind, he's got to also balance getting something out of this game. Getting something out of this game, for whether it's for the next game, whether it's for next season, whether it's for the Big Ten tournament. He's got to have a freaking plan to get something out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that you've got to try to go man for man, and you got to try to beat your guy. I mean, it's that simple. You got to try to play better than the guy that's across from you, and that's going to be a toughie because this is not just a talented team; it's a deep team. Michigan is up there, in my opinion. So Gonzaga and Baylor obviously have separated themselves from everybody except for Michigan to me. Like, I think Michigan is the deepest team in the country. Michigan has two guys that come off the bench that would be the leading scorer on Indiana, including Trace Jackson Davis on the team. And they've got guys on the team on the bench that would start on every single other team in the Big Ten, and they're that good. Like I'm excited to watch Saturday's game because I like to watch Michigan play every single time they get on the floor. They're that good and fun to watch. They are the antithesis of Indiana.
Race Thompson battled through a nose injury. Rumors all around today, whether we didn't know whether or not he was going to play. But I
heard that, like, a broken nose. Like, since when do we not play with broken noses? Like, Matt Nover would have never got to play a game in his life. He had 78 broken noses.
Is that why he looks like
that? On the side of his face. Thing's still way over there.
But yeah, he did play, but he didn't deliver a lot tonight. And I was wondering if that was bothering him. What was his production? 2 points. Yeah, 1 of 3. So it probably it was bothering him. Didn't get involved a lot there. I mean, he did have 9 rebounds though. So busy on the boards, battling there. Trace Jackson Davis with 21 and 11 on that. Al Durham with 20 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 5 of 7. But that was the only guard action whatsoever. Once again, Indiana just cannot get 2 guards to play on the same night.
Look, Archie said it a few games ago. They've got to have 2 out of 3 guards play well. What I don't understand is, and I'm allowed, I feel like I've earned the right to say this because I've been such a Rob Finney supporter for all 3 of his years being there. But he needs some time on the bench. Like he needs to go sit on the bench for a little while, and somebody else needs to have a chance to play. I don't care how good a defender he is. You can't put up 0 night in and night out and continue to be on the court. And the guy plays 25 plus minutes every single game and has 0 production. It's impossible. Jamal Meeks.
Oh, man.
I see you. If Jamal was in here, this dude next to me would be dead.
It's funny. The other day we were talking, I forget who was on the show, on the daytime show, but we were talking about the Alpha Dog thing. And I was like, going back to your team, I said, well, going back to Todd's team, from listening to him, if I had to pick somebody that would punch somebody right in the face, it's Jamal Meeks.
Look, here's something that's cool. Look, as a 50-year-old, Jamal's awesome, nice guy, real friendly. You meet him out, you think he's great or friendly. But between 3 and 5:30 every day, he's a dick. Like, he was an asshole every single day. He was so hard to play against. And we were all that way. Like, everybody was that way. Pat Graham, jerk. Like, not nice guy in practice. Nobody was fun. But then when we got done, everybody's a good guy. Everybody's a nice guy. Fun. It's nice to, wanted to hang out. But during that time, nobody was a good guy. Jamal's not a guy you want to run into during practice. Today, he's awesome. Buy him a beer. He'll tell you all kinds of funny stories. He's hilarious. But you don't want to run into him at practice. I
wish he was here. I wish he was here now. Well, well, players that played under that tougher, when you see the walking, and we talked about that earlier, I don't understand how, as a player, you do that, because you should be driven to want to exceed, to want to get to the spot.
Culture. It's a culture. It's not acceptable. It's not allowed. We didn't walk on offense because it wasn't acceptable. You would have never played again. Like, it would not have been a matter of you'd have gone and they would have talked to you on the bench. Like, you'd have never played again. And it's a culture. I'll stand beside that all day long. And the guy who harps on it day in and day out, I will say this. I firmly believe this. Indiana fans, for whatever reason, just because he says the truth all the time, don't like Dan Dockich. A lot of them don't. But if they made Danny the interim coach, or when he was the interim coach, if they would have made Danny the coach, we would not be in this position today.
It certainly would have been a continuation of the culture that you talked about before.
The AD took the easy road out. The AD didn't want to hire him, and they took the easy road out because he was the answer.
And a lot of people have talked that not only did they want to do that, but they wanted to make sure that they severed Bob Knight.
Right. I understand, and I understand that. I get that. I believe me, I do get that.
But it hurt him as much as it helped him.
I refer to the Bob Knight thing more than anybody. I'm as Bill Walton as anybody when it comes to that. And you know, I'm proud of it. But I also understand there needed to be some dramatic changes. But I don't just think separating the whole thing and just saying we can't have that at all. We can't have anyone that had anything to do with that. This is what you get. This is where we're at.
I don't know if this team is worse than Crean's first team, but they sure seem to execute a little better, even though they're only 6-25. They didn't have the talent.
It's silly to compare teams here and there, whatever years they are. All I can tell you is this particular team doesn't play well together. They have no culture. I'm not sure if you sat them down and you had an hour-long conversation and you asked them to explain their objectives on offense, I think that they could probably come out of the gate with about 2 minutes worth of something, and then there'd be 58 minutes of silence, because I don't think they could sit there and tell you wholeheartedly what it is they're trying to accomplish. You go ask some old players at Indiana, you go ask Randy Whitman, Ted Kitchell, what those guys were trying to accomplish. They couldn't fit it all in an hour. They would still be talking.
It's kind of like Indiana's offensive game. They've come out of the gate and gotten good starts, and then it just kind of goes awry. Yeah. Is that just simply other teams making adjustments?
No, it's not sustainable. You watch. Look, Indiana got off to that start because Al Durham knocked in 4 for 4 threes, and Trace got it going a little bit early, which is all great. You've got to expect some of those. You got to expect some nights like that where everything starts going in. But then it's got to continue from that point. Look, I wasn't disappointed. Here's what needed to happen at halftime. This is what needed to happen at halftime. As a fan, we're upset because they blew a 15-point lead. Okay? But as a player, you can't be that way. You've got to look at it and say, look at the big picture, Jim. Indiana was on the road at Rutgers, down by 4 at halftime. You're right there in the game. I don't think any coach would tell you down 4 that you're beat. You're done. And I don't think Archie Miller told those guys that. But what I'm also not sure of is that someone sat in there at halftime and said, okay, look, guys, we're right where we wanted to be. If you'd have told us going into this game we were going to be down 4 at halftime at Rutgers right now, this time of the year, we would have taken it. And that's how you got to look. I know it's glass half full, however, whatever analogy you want to use for it, but you've got to go into that situation at halftime, and somebody's got to go, guys, look, we're in a great position. Forget the 15-point lead. That had nothing to do with anything. And you need to come out that first 5 minutes of the second half and reestablish yourself. And that's what didn't happen. That lead went from 4 to 10 in a minute and a half. And that's where they got beat to me. It wasn't the 15-point lead they gave up in the first half, because that wasn't sustainable. You threw in 4 threes. You banked one in from 30 feet. Like, that's not sustainable. But down 4, that's sustainable. You're still in the game. You can still do that. Once it got to 10 in the second half, it was over. I wrote it off at that point.
And Indiana, again, not hitting any shots from the guard, and Rutgers was just draining it out there. At one point, I know Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker were 8 of, 10, I think. They were just blistering it and just looking and getting more confident with each shot.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for Indiana. They look more uncomfortable with each shot.
Sure.
And with each game, and which is confidence eroding and all of that. I put this up here as funny because that's, of course, every Hoosiers fan's biggest dream is for Brad Stevens to walk away from Boston. I don't see it happening. Who knows what happens in the world, but that would be great.
Okay, so if you factor everything into it, you say, okay, well, COVID, the budgets are so bad, like every school's lost so much money, the buyout number is so big. You look at all these. I honestly believe the only scenario that's possible in all of this is some blow up shock the world scenario where you go offer the Celtics $50 million to take Brad Stevens away. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that kind of scenario, no one in the world could argue against that that's not named Archie Miller.
Nope, and that's the only thing that is going to make a difference unless you make the absolute right hire, which is the one thing they have repeatedly not done, or they've screwed it up in one way or another. And it's just been a catastrophic series of events.
At what point do we all agree it's not working? You know, at what point does Archie even say, okay, yeah, it's not working?
I guess I'd like to know who doesn't think it's not working right now. Obvious, other than Archie Miller, who continues to do the exact same thing. I begged people on the show. I was like, give me something positive to talk about. There's nothing. So I'd love to know who thinks that it's working. Now, I know you can go on Facebook and find those goofballs there that don't know what the hell they're talking about. That will talk about Archie's got it. He's a great coach. He's got it going. It's not working here. Maybe it'll work someplace else. It's not going to work here. I don't think it's going to work in this league.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to jump into calling them all goofballs and all that, because look, everybody's got an opinion, okay? And everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I don't think anybody's stupid for having a certain opinion. I think I'm stupid a lot because
I'm stupider.
In the back of my mind, I start to think to myself, okay, they're going to turn it around. It's going to happen. Like it's going to happen. And I just continually do that over and over and over again. And then I get so mad at myself when I should have just gone with it and been like, okay, yeah, I'm wrong. They're bad. They're not good.
Did you read that? I just left that up there for you to read.
That's a good thing. You are right on the money there, Jeff. No doubt about it.
Boy, that guy's about to get knocked. He's getting closer and closer to getting knocked out. Oh, thank God.
This show might get a lot more hits.
I was like, man, I was keeping an eye on there, boy. I was like, oh, man. Not tough enough. Yeah, they're not tough enough. But I know that the answer should be no, but I don't know that it is. Generationally, kids are a little softer. I'm not saying it's okay, but I think it takes different measures, different things to maybe get it out. I don't know. You know way more because you played in it, but you've also you've got a son that's still playing. It's generationally, is there changes enough that it's causing a change?
Are kids different than they were 25 years ago?
They shouldn't
be. Probably 30 years ago, probably. I mean, they probably are. It's just the way things are. You know, I mean, it is kind of just the way things are. But Jim, here's the difference in all that. Some schools are winning. I mean, it's working somewhere. They're still able to accomplish this stuff, and like I'll tell you straight up right now, and we're all a part of the problem, okay? Because what do we want to see right now in recruiting? What does everybody want to see in recruiting? They want to see us recruit the top 100, the top 50, the top 25, 5 stars. Like, we want to see 5 stars come in here. Okay, that's what we want, a highly ranked recruiting class. Well, let me use a good example right now. This is a great example from in Todd's opinion, okay? You take a kid like Braden Smith at Westfield High School right now. A lot of people are going to say he's undersized. A lot of people are going to say he's not athletic enough. A lot of people are going to say he can't, all these different things. You say to that kid right now, I'm going to offer you a scholarship to Indiana, and I need you to play hard every minute that you're on the floor. Will you do that for me? Will you do what we ask you to do, and will you play hard every minute when you're on the floor? And I'll bet you that answer is going to be yes. And I give that kid a scholarship right then, because he can play. He's a guy that can play, but he's going to get looked at by Indiana. He's not going to get an offer from Indiana. And a guy like that should, because that kind of kid can play. And Indiana doesn't recruit that kind of kid. And I'm not in charge. So I'm just some rum-dum out here saying who they should and shouldn't go recruit. But I'll tell you this, when you recruit certain players and you force me to watch them play and they put up 0 night in and night out, I feel like I have the right to bitch a little bit. And so if you're not going to go get the kids I want to watch on the floor, because you put Braden Smith, who's a junior in high school right now, on Indiana's floor tonight, he doesn't end up with a 0. Guaranteed fact.
I don't doubt that, and I think a big part of that, it goes back to some player development issues that are for these guys, because they're playing at the same level that they have.
Yeah.
And they can talk about confidence all they want. I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing that confidence crap. But
yeah, we got to cut it off. I mean, we're just going to keep saying stupid stuff. Like we're saying that everything. Let everybody go on Facebook or go on afterwards and say it. Like we suck. Like this team's not any good. We're terrible announcers afterwards because we got nothing good to say. Like Indiana's a shit show.
Oh man, we do thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back.
We
on
thank Yogi's
Saturday.
Got good food.
Thanks to Nathan Finney and the Finney Hospitality Group, to Chris Martin and Kelly and everybody here. But most importantly, thanks to you guys, all the comments. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure you tune in on Monday after the game, back with Indiana Sports Beat Monday morning. Charlie Miller will be on to start the week off, and then of course, Todd, we're
Are
back.
You not on
what
tomorrow?
Is today?
What's wrong with tomorrow's Thursday?
Oh, I forgot what day is today. Damn it. I don't know. I was thinking today was Saturday.
No.
That days are so screwed up. Tomorrow is what? Thursday? Okay. Chris Denari and Matt Taylor from the Colts and the Pacers tomorrow. So, and plenty more. But so we're back on Saturday for the Michigan game, which that's a
have Matt do his Don Fisher impersonation. He's great at it.
He does. He's good.
Awesome at it.
But thanks to you guys. We really appreciate you so much, and look forward to seeing with you again. Go out and do something nice for somebody. Wear your mask. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.